Praise the Lord. In this present world, we often hear many people complain to us in such a way that why am I born in this family, or why have I been in such a generation? Many will say that if I would have been in that family, they would have met all my needs, or many would have said, if I would have been in that family, I don't need to suffer like this. Many will have many complaints. Sometimes in our lifetime, we too may have felt the same way in certain situations when we are going through some difficulties. Somehow we might have felt this. So, the topic for today's meditation is, will the situation of our family hinder our goals? That is, the background from which we come, will it be a hindrance for reaching heights in life? There was a famous quote which was said by Bill Gates. He said in such a way that if you were born poor, it is not your mistake, but if you die poor, it is your mistake. He said this in a worldly term, but actually it is true. See, our family in which we are born is not a hindrance for our blessing at all. See, one thing, the family in which we are is not by an accident. God placed us in this family, and He has a purpose for us that He placed in this family, so that we have to fulfill something in this family in which the God placed us. It is gonna be the boost up for us to reach our destination. See, if you are being placed in some other family or some other lineup, definitely you cannot fulfill the plan that God has for you. You cannot reach that height. God would have kept a height that you should reach. So, for that, God kept you here. But that is the reason God kept each one in a family under parents. So, remember one thing, our parents are always a pathway for us to reach the destination, and they are never a hindrance or a stumble block for us to reach our goals. See, we can see in Jeremiah 1:5, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. So, even before we came into this world, God knew us. So, if God knew us before that we came into the world, will He not know where He have to place us? Definitely He knows. He placed us with a particular purpose, and we should find in which way that we should attain heights in life in this family, through this family, not by going out of family. Many will say, I will just go out of this family and definitely I will shine. No, God kept you in this family for a reason, so that by the help of this family only you can reach the heights. The family that God gave us is planned by Him before we came into this world. It is not after we came, it is before we came. So we can't change or alter things, but definitely if God kept us in a family, He would have given us everything in advance through which we can get up into great heights in life. See, the best example is Jesus Christ. Today our meditation is gonna be from genealogy of Jesus, from Matthew 1 to 12. See, we can see several kinds of people in genealogy of Jesus. One thing I have to stress here is, not all the people in the genealogy are holy. Not all the people in the genealogy are rich. Not all the people in the genealogy did not have any great backgrounds or something like that. Not all the persons in the genealogy led a free and a happy life. Many were enslaved actually. So remember one thing, Jesus came from a lineup that is not so comfortable, that is not so pleasant, but yet he attained heights in his life. Now, for today's meditation, I am going to show you 5 people from Matthew 1 1 to 12. I took 5 for today's meditation and 5 kinds of people from which Jesus came. The first person is Tamar. As the name Tamar we can see is in Matthew 1 3. See, before speaking about Tamar, I want to ask a question. If we read Genesis, the Genesis ends in such a way that it ends like Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph. These 4 are the patriarchs that gives a conclusion for Genesis. Now, if we read this Matthew chapter 1, we can find the name of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But how did the name Joseph got replaced to Judah here? How was Judah's generation selected and Joseph's generation was not selected? This is because of one person named Tamar here. Many Bible authors give several explanations and commentaries for why Judah's generation was selected instead of Joseph's, but this is according to what God taught me. See, to know more about Tamar, we should read Genesis 38 1 to 26. I'll explain in short who is Tamar. Tamar is no one, but she is the daughter-in-law of Judah. We can read that in Genesis 38 6 and 7. So Tamar was no one than Judah's daughter-in-law, and she married Judah's first son. The first son name was Er. But since this Er was wicked in his ways, the Lord slew him and he died. And the verse continues in Genesis 38 8 and 10. Judah gave his second son Onan in marriage to Tamar once again, and Onan did a sin which was written in verse 9, and that sin displeased the Lord, and the Lord slew him again. Now, see, just think about the situation of Tamar now. Tamar was married to 2 brothers, that is 2 sons now, and both of them died. What would the world have spoken about Tamar? They would have said in such a way that since these men married Tamar, they died. Definitely the world would have spoken like that. They would have seen Tamar as an unfortunate woman now, or some might have seen Tamar as a sinner, because no one knows the sin that these 2 sons of Judah did except God. God saw that they sinned and God killed them, but no one knew the sin what these sons did. But everyone would start blaming Tamar, but actually Tamar was an innocent woman here. But she could not prove her innocence. We can read in Genesis 38:11, even his father-in-law said, if I gave in marriage my 3rd son to Tamar, even he would die. So even Judah thought that the reason for the son's death was Tamar. Just think how depressed and how rejected Tamar would have felt now. She was rejected by his father-in-law. She was rejected by the society. No one considered her, but in the genealogy of Jesus, God brought her name. Tamar might have thought, everyone forgotten me. Everyone are blaming me for no reason. Everyone have pushed me down. But there is one God in heaven who really saw the cry of Tamar, and might be in her lifetime she didn't receive very such great blessings, but her name was remembered and it was written in the genealogy of Jesus. That is why Judah's generation was chosen instead of Joseph's. So the first one, for the first generation in which Jesus came from a genealogy of rejected person. not a happy, not ever happy persons, or not cheerful persons. No, Jesus came from the genealogy of a rejected person. Now, second is Rahab. We can see that in Matthew 1:5. Now, who is Rahab? For this, we have to go to Joshua chapter 2 and verse 1, which says Rahab is a harlot, which is a prostitute. So, according to the world, this Rahab is a sinner. Even today and before days, prostitutes were considered as sinners, and the Bible says that they have to be stoned according to the law that is given in Leviticus. So, she is a sinner. But how this Rahab's name came in the genealogy of Jesus is she had a heart to serve the people of God. That she hid 2 spies that were sent by Joshua, and this character to serve God's people got her name into genealogy of Jesus. So the second group of people from which Jesus came is a group from a sinful people, that is a people whose name was termed as sinners. From that genealogy, from that generation, Jesus came. The third was Ruth. Matthew 1:5 tells her name here. Now, for to know more about Ruth, we have to go to Ruth 1:4. And it says that Ruth was a Moabite. Moabite is nothing but she is a Gentile, which is a generation that is not chosen by God. That generation, actually Israel was the chosen generation, and Moabites were not God's chosen actually. So in other terms, they are non-believers. So the third group of people is from the group of non-believers. Jesus came. Jesus didn't come from an ancestral pastor's family. We cannot say that Jesus came from the if Jesus would have come from the tribe of Aaron the priest, we would have said, okay, Jesus came from the royal priesthood family, and we can say that the priesthood comes to him. No, but Jesus had a member in the genealogy who is a non-believer, and Jesus came from that generation. Fourth is David the king. Matthew 1:6 mentions David as a king, and David is the only person in the genealogy to be mentioned as a king right from his birth. Even Solomon's name was there, but it was not mentioned as king. But David was ordained as king right from his birth. But now, to see more about David, we should see about David's life. Everyone know David as a king, and even when describing Jesus, many will say son of David. But David had other side. I like to show 2 incidents from the life of David, which is replicated in the life of Jesus. See, David was rejected by his own family members. Yes, David was rejected by his own family members. The first one who rejected David was his own father Jesse. When he brought all his sons before Samuel, he forgot where David was. He just remembered about other sons, but he forgot David. The second one to reject was Eliab, his first elder brother. In the battle with Goliath, when David was just asking a question, Eliab screamed to him and shouted at and yelled at him. So the second one was his own brother. So David had a rejection in his family. And the same way Jesus too had. John 1:11 says, he came unto his own, and his own received him not. And Luke 4:29 says, and rose up and thrust him out of the city, and led him unto the brow of the hill where the city was built, that they might cast him down. So who did try to push Jesus from hill is his own people, Nazarites. So as David was rejected by his people, the same way Jesus was rejected here. And second thing is, David was not a stable person. He was a nomad. He kept on moving from place to place. Before becoming king, Saul was chasing him, and after becoming king, his own son Absalom was chasing him. Even they too were family members. So King Saul was his father-in-law, and Absalom was his son. They both were chasing him. He did not have a stable place. Same way Luke 9:58 says, the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. Jesus came from such a generation. We all know David just as a king, but another aspect of David, the fourth group that we are going to see, is the Jesus came from a lineage of nomad, that is a wanderer, moving from place to place, cannot be settled in a particular place. Even if they are willing to, they will be chased out from that place. Jesus too lived as a nomad, and he came from a lineage of a king who was a nomad. And the last one is, Jesus came from a captive generation. Matthew 1:12 says, and after they were brought to Babylon. This happened during the period of Nebuchadnezzar, when he brought many people as captives, in which Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach and Abednego were one among them. We can read that in Daniel 1. So this group of people were actually slaves, and they were taken into captivity. And this last group of people, I term them as restricted people, because they are restricted from doing what they wish. We can read that in Daniel, where Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego did not want to worship that statue, but they were forced to do. They didn't do it actually, but they were forced to do something. That is what restricted. And second thing is, Daniel wanted to pray, but a law came that he should not pray, restricting him from prayer. When we are as slaves in a particular place, we cannot do as we wish. We are restricted to a particular box, so that only that we can do. So the last group of people is, Jesus came from a genealogy of restricted people. Now just to recap the 5 groups: rejected people, sinful people, non-believers, nomad and restricted. This is the genealogy of Jesus, my friends. Jesus came from such a generation. Jesus did not come from a very royal background. Even Jesus' worldly father was Joseph. He was a carpenter, and he was not a rich person too. So how did Jesus achieve his goals in his life? How could Jesus achieve the heights in his life just by coming from such a background and being in such a poor family? John 4:34 says, Jesus said unto them, my meat is to do the will of the Lord that sent me, and to finish his work. This is the goal that Jesus had, my friends. He did not mind about his surroundings. He did not mind about his familial situation. He did not mind about his genealogy. He just focused on one thing: the will of God for his life. Everyone listening to this right now, I want you all to learn one thing. If you want to get to greater heights in your life, you have to do 2 things as Jesus did. The first thing is, you should be obedient to your parents, as Jesus was. Until 30 years, Jesus was obedient to his parents. And second thing is, you have to recognize the will of the God in your life, and you have to work towards it. You should never blame the parents for not achieving your dreams, because God kept you in that place. Parents are a source for you to reach your blessing and destination, and never ever blame your parents, and never ever blame their situation, saying that because you were like this, I could not reach this destination. No, Your parents are the tunnel through which you should go. We have no other go to reach the blessing, and we cannot attain greater heights without our parents. Bible clearly says we should obey our parents in the Lord, and this is the only commandment that came with the blessing. If we are obeying our parents, we will have a long life. So I just want to stress one thing: our family situation and the status of our parents and the genealogy from which we came is not a stumble block for us to reach our destination. If you are having such a mindset that because my family is like this, I could not reach heights, you definitely need to seek God for what purpose He has called you in this world. Seek His will, as Jesus knew very well what the Father has for him, and He decided to fulfill that thing first. Even food He didn't mind. He said that my food is to do the will of God. Jesus had that as his priority. The same way, everyone listening to me, if we are going to follow these two things, first thing is to obey our parents, and second thing is to identify the will of God for our life and work towards it, strive hard towards it, definitely we will reach our heights. Jesus, when He rose up, He got the name above all names, that at the name of Jesus everyone should bow down. He got such a name, He got such a higher position. But on seeing the genealogy, that was not so great. So everyone who is listening to this, we all are called for a purpose, and we are placed in this particular place for a purpose. So don't complain or grumble against your parents. That will become a curse for us, because we should not question God's decision. It is God who decided and kept us here. If you are asking your parents, or if you are complaining about your parents, you are grudging about God's decision. So that will become a curse to us, and never ever don't do that mistake. That will definitely stop or hinder our blessings. So thank God for your parents. Thank God, praise God for your parents, and obey your parents regularly. Definitely they are going to be the source for you to attain greater heights in your life. God bless you. God